Hi everybody! I am finally getting around to doing a video that I've been meaning to do for a long time, which is my gear review video at the halfway point of the AT. I meant to do this back in Harper's Ferry, but never got around to it, and now I'm at mile 1410, the Spiritual Life Center at Graymoor. So I'm doing my 2/3 of the way gear review. And I'm going to tell you about the changes that I've made since I started the AT and kind of what has changed about my gear, because it's a lot. First of all, I wanted to talk about the foot gear that I've been using. It's been a struggle throughout my AT Thru-hike to find the right gear that'll allow me to have like the minimal smell with the maximal comfort, basically. And shoes have especially been a struggle. Right now I am wearing these Anu Sugar Pine mids. After I sprained my ankle for the second time, I wanted something that was, going to give me a lot of support and kind of bring me over the Pennsylvania rocks. And they've lasted decently, but at this point, they're pretty worn out from the rocks. You can see a lot of wear on the sides, and they're really uncomfortable. So the other problem with these is that they're supposed to be waterproof, and they are not. I've tried a variety of different shoes so far on the trail. I think I've talked about, I started with Merrill Moab lows, and then I switched to two different pairs of trail runners. The first one was the Cascadia 10s, which I was really unhappy with and did not last very long at all because they started ripping on the sides. And then a cheaper pair of Saucony trail runners, which worked better actually than the Cascadias, but ended up ripping relatively quickly, like right along the front here, and they also caused me to fall down a lot. So I still haven't found the perfect shoe, and I'm struggling with that. I'm switching back to trail runners soon. The other thing I wanted to review with foot gear is these inserts, because I've had inserts the whole time that I've been on trail. I haven't been using these store inserts for anything. And these green Superfeet inserts are the inserts that everyone swears by, but in my experience, for me personally, they don't quite give me enough support. So I've been having problems going down hills or even up hills with heel like when I strike on my heel, it's been hurting for a while. They're supposed to last about 1,000 miles, but they just haven't been giving me the support I need. So I'm also going to switch up with the insoles, and I plan to make a video later giving my full foot gear review after I'm done with the trail to tell you if I finally find something that worked for me, ideally what worked in both these departments, because I still haven't made it work yet. Next, I wanted to talk about these, which are, for me, have been a real difference maker in terms of my knee pain. They're Miller leg straps, and they just strap, right around your knee. Like, you can watch a video. There's like a quick tutorial on YouTube to show you how to use them. But they really help, especially with downhill, they really help me to not have as bad of knee pain, especially when you're doing like 18-mile, 25-mile days, and you're just going up and down hills all the time, and it just becomes brutal on the knees when you're carrying a 30-pound pack. So these really have made a big difference for me. They may not work for everyone, and I've definitely seen more people with more intense knee straps, but I like that they're pretty, lightweight and small. The only problem with them is that they do sometimes slide off, like slide down, so they're not helping my knee after a while, and I have to tighten them, which is annoying. But it's pretty, I recommend them, and I'm glad that I got them in Virginia because they've done a lot of good since then. I think they will continue to. Next thing, socks. That has been another pain point for me, because it's hard to find a pair of socks that don't cause a lot of odor after a couple days. I initially was using the socks that everyone recommends, which are, I can't remember right now what they're called, but I can leave a link, but those didn't really work for me. I was getting a lot of excessive foot smell like after a day, which was really unpleasant, and people in the shelter were like telling me I had to put my socks outside because they smelled so awful. It was like unusually bad. So I was tired of dealing with that, so I ended up switching out my socks. I got these Smart Whirl socks, and the ones that I've been using most of all right now, but now they're stinky after a week of wear, but initially they weren't too bad, are these Cabela's socks. And these are my favorites just because they're really thin, and when it's this hot out, it's really nice to have like a nice thin sock that won't be so warm on your foot, because you want something that'll be like very light and pleasant. So yeah, I have switched it up. So for rainy conditions, I have two main things that I've been using to kind of hold off the rain. In camp, and when I am not hiking and just cold in general and need something to cover me up, I have this rain jacket. I originally started with a pair of rain pants as well, but as the temperatures got warmer, it became more annoying to wear the rain pants than anything else, and I just didn't think that they were all that useful, so I usually just wear shorts in the rain, and sometimes I wear this. If it's a lighter rain that's kind of misty, or it's really hilly and I'm going up and down hill, sometimes I'll just wear this with the hood up, just because it's not always strictly necessary to have an umbrella. But the downside of just wearing a rain jacket in the rain is that if you're hiking, you'll end up sweating almost as much as you would get rained on if you just didn't wear rain gear. So that's kind of the paradox with hiking with rain gear, is you just overheat. I know a lot of people swear by the armpit zippers, but I didn't want to spend that much on my raincoat, so I just have an inexpensive one from Charles River Apparel, which is not meant for hiking specifically. So it's like relatively light and it works decently, but it's getting a little worn out from being in my pack all folded up. The other thing that I've been using, which I love personally, and I know that not everyone agrees with me, but I would really recommend it for other people, is the trekking umbrella. I had a different one, which unfortunately I misplaced in the Shenandoahs, but the company Eurosherm was awesome about sending me a replacement, and this is the Eurosherm swing light, and it's also got UV protection, so I can use this if it's pouring down rain. There's nothing really better than a trekking umbrella because it keeps the rain off of you, and it also keeps your pack a little dry. And I also listen to my iPod a lot while I'm hiking, and it keeps, or not my iPod, but my phone, it keeps that dry as well, which is really nice. And I can do it hands-free, and it's just all around a fantastic option. And you can also use it when it's sunny and hot and you just want some cover if you're in an area where there's not a lot of trees. On the AT, that's sometimes a little hard, but I've done it in town when I really don't want to expose myself to more sun, like if I have a little bit of a sunburn. So it's all around just really great, and I think it's worth the extra few ounces, so highly recommended. I'll show you what it looks like. It's shiny. So, very cool. I have cut down my clothes a little bit. I have most of the clothes that I started with, including these two pairs of shorts, my pants, my short sleeve shirt, and a fleece. Right now, since it's pretty hot generally, it's usually probably in the 80s, and there are days where it's reached as high as 95. I've been lucky enough to not have to have my fleece coat, but I'm probably going to get that back in the whites. So I've kind of cut this down, but I know I could have it cut down a little more. It's just that I like to have extra clothes for different situations. Like I like having pants when I feel really cold, and I like having the fleece in situations where it's like I'm wet and cold and in my tent and shivering. These shorts are nice when it's raining for me, just because it doesn't chafe as much when it's raining. And then the running shorts are nice like when I'm washing my other clothes, and just, or when I just need a break from something tight. And the shirt is decent, but it stinks sometimes, so I've mostly been wearing this dress to hike, honestly, which is nice as long as it's not raining. But as soon as it starts raining, the dress gets really heavy and weighs me down and is really annoying. But I do think it chafes less than shorts, so I'm a big fan of the hiking dress, and I recommend that other women try it because I think it's a pretty good choice. You can get boy shorts that are pretty modest, or like, I can't remember what they're called, skimmers or something, that will make it so that you don't have to worry about anything showing, and then it's like a little breezier and you look a little better too. So that makes hitchhiking easier, and people, ever since I've been wearing this, have been telling me that I don't look like a hiker, but I think it's kind of silly because the only thing that's negative about it is that you have to, sometimes you get rubbing from your pack in the areas where it isn't, so that's unfortunate. And they do recommend long sleeves for tick prevention, but I mean, I haven't really been doing that. As for sleeping gear, I've kept it mostly the same. I haven't really changed that much, but I have switched it up a little since it's gotten warmer and harder to sleep in what I had before. As for my sleeping pad, I still have a Thermarest Pro Light. It works perfectly well, and I initially thought that it had been popped early on, but it hasn't been, and it's held up well this whole time. So I haven't had too many issues with it. I had some issues with it deflating in the night when it was cold. I think it was because I was blowing hot air into it, and then it would deflate when it got really cold. But since it's gotten hotter, I've had no problems at all. And it's pretty comfortable. I would recommend it. As for my sleeping bag, I had a big Agnes Roxy sleeping bag that was, I think, 15 degrees, and I'm probably going to get it back in the whites. But currently, I have an REI 45 degree bag that Stacy lent me for the time being until then. So thank you very much, Stacy. It's worked out very well, and many nights I don't even need to sleep in it, but sometimes lately it's gotten cold enough, and we're far enough north now that it does get a little chilly, like down into maybe the 60s. So it's come out to play quite a few times, and since it's getting so warm, and even in the beginning when it was pretty cold and I needed something to sleep in so I wasn't shivering all night, I have this Cocoon sleeping bag liner. I would recommend getting a color other than white because it's gotten really dirty and it's kind of disgusting to show it to you right now. I'm a little embarrassed, but it works well, and it's washable. It's good when it's cold, as just to add a little extra protection in your sleeping bag. It keeps your sleeping bag a little cleaner, although I don't think it does a perfect job. And it also, when it's really hot, you can have your sleeping bag under you just to kind of keep you from sticking to your sleeping pad, and have this on just as to keep you warm enough. So you guys may know that I started with the Tarp Tent Contrail one-person tent, and I had trouble with it because it was not letting me, it just wasn't standing up very strong in rain. It was kind of collapsing a little on me, and I tried to push it lower, but I was still having problems. So I switched to a slightly heavier tent. That is the North Face Stormbreak 1, which is affectionately known as the taco tent. I don't have time to set it up right now because there's a thunderstorm approaching, but it looks like a taco when it's set up because of the color of the fly. It's a really small tent, and it's kind of heavy for how small it is, but it does stand up well in the rain, which is a big plus. It doesn't have enough room for my pack, which is unfortunate. It's kind of like a bivvy with a slightly higher roof, so there's really not any room for rolling around, which is unfortunate also. Initially it came with heavier stakes, but I replaced them with lighter stakes, so I have these nice laced stakes for it, which has cut down the weight a little bit, and I recommend it somewhat. It's relatively inexpensive, so that's nice, but at the same time it's not my favorite tent ever, so I'm not sure. I haven't found the perfect tent for me, maybe. So yeah. You may have noticed in my last few videos that I have a different pack than I started with. I started with a ULA Circuit, which is an ultralight pack that's super popular on the AT, but I had some issues with it. For one thing, the load I was carrying wasn't really ultralight, it was more lightweight, and so it didn't all fit well into my pack. And another disadvantage of the pack that I had was that it stank, and also that I was having trouble balancing it. It wasn't balancing well on my back, so I was riding on my back funny, which was kind of annoying and I didn't enjoy. So I switched to this Deuter Act Light 60-liter pack, women's pack. The main advantages that I like over the ULA Circuit pack are that it has a lot more padding in the straps and the hip belt, which is really nice. So it's more comfortable. It's significantly heavier, but considering the amount of weight I'm carrying, just having that is a big plus. And the other thing is that there are multiple pockets, so if I wanted to get something out in the middle of the day, I don't have to dig through the whole pack to get something from the very bottom. So I can keep my food in here, and it's all separated out so that if I want to get my lunch out, I can just take it out from the top and I don't have to like dig around. I know a lot of people pack their lunch ahead of time, but I always like eat more than I am expecting or whatever, and I don't like having to plan ahead exactly what I'm going to eat. And then I can have my raincoat easy access, and it just works better for me. There's also this nice external area here, and it's just a better pack in my opinion, but I mean, everyone has different reasons that they like a pack that works for them. The other thing about the other pack was that, and I've heard this from multiple people, is that it's really stinky for some reason. It holds smells really well, the netting in the back of it. And so if you don't wash it pretty frequently, it starts really smelling, and you start smelling once it gets sweaty. It's weird because if you're not out hiking, you don't particularly smell, but as soon as you start hiking with it and you get sweaty, like you can really smell all the built up smell that's in it, and it's really disgusting. So if you're wondering why some thru hikers smell, it's not them always, it's also their gear, which holds smells really well. But this so far I haven't had that problem as much, and the padding keeps it away from my back a little better so that it's not as sweaty right against my back. So with my water filtration system, originally I had both Sawyer and Aquamira drops, and I was using just 2 Nalgene bottles for that to carry my water during the day. But as it got hotter, I thought it'd be nice to have a water system that I could drink while I walked, because I watched other people just drinking from their camelbacks while they were walking, and I couldn't do it myself. So I got, in June sometime I think, I got a camelback system, which works pretty well. The only thing is you have to make sure that this is in the pocket first, so that all your other stuff can like kind of conform to it, rather than trying to put it in last, because it never stays down if you try to put it in last. And I switched out the bite valves so that it's not like the bite valve that comes with this particular camelback model will just hang down, and it's kind of annoying because it like does this every time you walk. And so with this you can just have a little magnet on your pack and just put the bite valve there and it stays put, which is nice. The other thing, originally I started with Aquamira also in addition to this Sawyer water filter, and I also had a Sawyer Mini originally, but the Sawyer Mini actually froze at some point. It stopped working. I think it froze. I think, was that before the Smokies? I think it was before the Smokies. Maybe it was in Southern Virginia. I can't really remember, but it must have been a while ago because it was actually cold, which we haven't had in a while. So I used the Aquamira a few times, but I could taste it, and admittedly it saves a little bit of time to use the Aquamira and just put it in there. But the other thing is I don't really like having floaties in my water, and I don't trust just getting them out with a bandana or what other people use. Basically mostly bandanas or like a little like screen something to get the water floaties out. So I have been using this and just filtering my water, and I think as we get further north and we have to rely more on pond water for drinking, this is a really good choice, just having the Sawyer and the Platypus. And then the other thing that you have to have which I've been using my Jetboil cup for, is having something to scoop water, because there's a lot of water sources that are too shallow to just get the water out and actually be able to fill this bag, so you should think about that before you head out on the AT. So on the AT, since it rains a lot, you need to have something to keep your gear dry, because you don't want to have your sleeping bag or your tent or anything getting wet. So I recommend getting dry bags, and my favorite so far, I've tried both the Sea to Summit and the Granite Gear dry bags, and I much prefer the Sea to Summit. These are Sea to Summit event compression sacks. This one is from Cabela's, so I think it might be a more recent model, but these two are both like the same. All three are the same actually, and this one and this one are the same size. This one is a little smaller, but all three are really good, and they stand up really well in rain and will keep your gear like completely dry, and they also save quite a bit of space in your pack because they can compress down. These aren't fully compressed right now. I could show you sometime what they look like fully compressed, but I am in kind of a time crunch, so I'm not going to. And this is what I keep my electronics in. I could probably use a slightly larger bag because it's a little small. These bags that are just dry bags without compression are a little bit cheaper generally than the compression sacks, because the compression sacks, you know, they have the extra added things. And this sack, which is my clothes, also doubles as my pillow every night, so it works out pretty well for me. I have it compressed in my stuff all day, and I don't recommend keeping something compressed when you're sleeping because it ends up being really hard, so you should like loosen it and then unroll the top. I had originally had a large variety of electronics. I had, I think, about 5 different devices, because I had a camera, 2 different MP3 players, my Kindle, and also a different headlamp. And so now I've kind of drastically reduced the number of electronics that I'm using, and I wanted to show you just what my setup is now. So I changed my headlamp. I had I can't remember, Illumi headlamp, and was very unhappy with how dim it was at night. And so I ended up switching to this Petzeltika headlamp, which has a rechargeable battery that you can just use a micro USB and plug it in and it'll charge, and it lasts for a really long time. I think it's supposed to last for 100 hours of light, and it also adjusts to how dark it is. So if it's darker, it'll become brighter, and in an environment where it's kind of light, it'll be dimmer. So that's pretty awesome. And also, the other thing I like about it is that you don't have to, with the Illumi Lumen, you had to go through the strobe phase to get to the red light, and in this one, you don't have to do that, which is nice. I still have been using my Kindle. I've actually been reading pretty regularly on the trip, and I've read a few books. Primarily, though, I've been using my phone, which is my all-purpose item. I still am glad that I have the Kindle, and I don't want to give it up. It doesn't cause that much extra weight, and it's nice to have something that has a longer battery life than the Kindle, or than the phone, which basically eats my battery like there's no tomorrow. The phone is my video recorder now, and it had a lot of better sound than the camera that I was using for videos originally. It is my camera for pictures. It is my MP3 player, so I basically have it on all day, and obviously it's my communication device. And I was using it the other day when I didn't have my headlamp in town, and it got dark unexpectedly early to light the way back, so I use it as a flashlight too. So it's pretty much good for everything. It's super useful. I've also ordered food from it through an app on the trail, so I really recommend having a smartphone on the trail. I think it's super useful, and it's also my AT guide now because I don't have the paper one anymore. So it is really like the most important piece of gear that I have. It's so useful, and I pretty much use it many hours in the day. Lately I've been listening to more audiobooks, so I pretty much have had it on all the time in airplane mode. Unfortunately, with the LG G3, the battery life is not great. Even with, maybe it's how I've been using the data, because I do use the internet most days, but even with the airplane mode, it like lasts maybe a day and then needs to be charged, which is where this Anker Astro E5 second generation battery comes in. It is pretty heavy. I think I looked it up and it was like 10 or 11 ounces, but it is good, and it charges my phone multiple times. My phone eats batteries like there's no tomorrow, so it's really useful to have this. And I can also charge these other two devices, which require a lot less charging, but it's still valuable to have, because like this ran out of battery the other day when I was out of town, and I could just plug it in and it saved me. So it's great to have a relatively small setup. It's not like, definitely not an ultralight setup, but it's definitely come down a lot since I first started. There's a few things that I forgot to discuss earlier in the video, which I really should have included in other sections. For one thing, I forgot to talk about these Vivo Barefoot camp shoes, which I've been using pretty much nonstop in town, and are going to be good for river crossings. I got them because I lost one of my Crocs, and I wanted something that was really light and also had a back to it, and I could wear when I was crossing a river and wouldn't slide off my foot. So even though they're a lot more expensive than the Croc knockoffs that I originally had, I've been really happy with these. They really stay on your feet really well, and they're really light. I can't quite imagine running in them. I guess you'd have to put inserts in them, and I wouldn't hike in them for any extended period of time, but they're perfect for just being around camp or in town and just really comfortable. I had Lecky poles, but I wasn't really happy with the Lecky poles because they started, when it got warm, they started melting off onto my hands, and my hands were constantly coated with black goo, which was pretty nasty. So, and then I lost them. So I now have these Black Diamond poles, which I'm a lot happier with. They're lighter. The cork hurts my wrists a lot less. Like, I was having a lot of hand pain, which surprisingly kind of went away when I started using these cork grips, and they just work really well. And so I'm pretty happy with these. The only thing is one of the screw is now loose on them, so that's unfortunate. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, which I don't know if I've talked about in a video yet, is a pee rag. I wasn't sure initially what I was going to do on the AT with peeing, because obviously you don't want to have toilet paper to have to bury it, and you don't want to have to drip dry. So I had heard about this, and as I got to know other people on the trail, I realized that a lot of women were just having a bandana that they were exclusively using for peeing, and then they just have it out to dry during the day, and the sun dries it and is supposed to make it not like toxic. So that's what I've been doing too, and it works really well. So I'd recommend it if you're a woman who is looking for the perfect solution for peeing in the woods. Thru-hiking is an exercise in having to adapt to what works for you kind of on the fly, especially with your gear, since it's such an essential part of your hike. You really have to be able to change things up and find what works best for you, and the only way to find that out is through trial and error. So you'll notice that a lot of my gear has changed, and I could have survived just fine with the gear I started with generally, but I found what's worked for me better, and I'm not thinking that anything significant is going to change between now and Maine in terms of my gear, except shoes and socks maybe. But we will see. There's always changes that are possible, and I know I'm going to get some of my winter gear back. So thank you for watching, and I hope that this is helpful to everyone who's been asking, and there's been a ton of changes, as you can see. If you have any more questions about my gear, there are some videos that I'm planning to do after I'm done to talk about different issues on the trail with stuff like periods, so I didn't touch on those things, but I will eventually. Thank you for watching.